Hi, my name is Rachel Morgan, and I want to share a story with you that forever changed my life. This story isn't just about me, it's about faith, love, and the profound power of God's presence. It all began on a sunny October morning in 2018. I remember the day so clearly. The air was crisp, the kind of crispness that wakes you up and fills you with energy. The sky was a bright, endless blue, and the trees were painted in fiery shades of orange, red, and gold. Fall had always been my favorite season, and I couldn't resist the call of the outdoors. Jogging was my escape. As a middle school math teacher, life could be stressful. Between grading papers, preparing lessons, and managing a classroom full of energetic kids, I rarely had time for myself. But running was my sanctuary. It was my time to think, to pray, and to clear my mind. That morning, everything felt normal. I tied my shoes, grabbed a bottle of water, and set out on my usual route through the neighborhood park. I loved that park. It was quiet, peaceful, and filled with winding trails that let me lose myself in thought. About 15 minutes into my jog, I started to notice something strange. At first, it was just a slight tightness in my chest. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I had pushed myself too hard. But as I continued running, the tightness turned into a sharp, stabbing pain. I slowed down, trying to catch my breath, but the pain only grew worse. It radiated down my left arm, leaving me lightheaded and gasping for air. My legs felt weak, and I stumbled to the ground. In that moment, I knew something was seriously wrong. I remember clutching my chest, struggling to breathe, and praying silently, "God, help me." A jogger passing by saw me collapse. I could hear their voice faintly as they knelt beside me. "Are you okay?" they asked, their tone filled with concern. Then I heard them call 911, their voice urgent and shaky. The last thing I remember was the feeling of the world closing in around me. The colors of the park, the sound of the jogger's voice, even the pain in my chest. It all faded away into darkness. When I opened my eyes, or at least when I became aware again, I wasn't in my body anymore. I was floating above the scene, looking down at everything with a strange sense of detachment. I could see my body lying on the ground, motionless, as the jogger frantically tried to help me. Paramedics arrived quickly, and I watched as they began working on me. They placed a defibrillator on my chest, shouting, "Clear!" before delivering a jolt of electricity. My body jerked, but there was no response. What struck me most was how calm I felt. Even as I watched them try to revive me, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't panicking or confused. Instead, I was filled with an overwhelming sense of peace. From my elevated position, I could see everything with incredible clarity. The sunlight filtering through the trees, the concerned expression on the paramedics' faces, the way the leaves rustled in the breeze. It was all so vivid, more vivid than anything I had ever experienced in my physical body. And then I noticed something else. In the distance, there was a light. At first, it was faint, like the glow of a candle in a dark room, but as I focused on it, the light grew brighter, warmer, and more inviting. The light wasn't just something I could see, it was something I could feel. It radiated love, peace, and an indescribable warmth that seemed to reach out and wrap around me like a comforting embrace. I felt myself being drawn toward it, as if the light were calling me. It wasn't a forceful pull, it was gentle, inviting, and irresistible. I wanted to go to it, to be surrounded by its warmth and love. As I moved toward the light, the scene below me began to fade. The paramedics, the park, even my own body, all of it seemed to melt away into the background. The only thing that mattered was the light and the incredible sense of peace it gave me. Before I knew it, I was traveling through a tunnel. But this wasn't an ordinary tunnel. It wasn't dark or foreboding. Instead, it was filled with vibrant colors that swirled and danced around me. Blues, purples, and golds shimmered and shifted, creating patterns that seemed to move in harmony with a melody I couldn't hear but could somehow feel. The air in the tunnel felt alive, almost electric, as if it were charged with divine energy. I wasn't walking or flying. I was simply moving, carried effortlessly by a force I couldn't see, but trusted completely. As I moved further into the tunnel, I felt lighter, freer. Every worry, every burden, every ounce of pain I had ever carried seemed to dissolve. It was as if I was being cleansed, prepared for something extraordinary. The colors grew brighter, and the sense of love and peace became even more overwhelming. I remember thinking, if this is what heaven feels like, I never want to leave. As I reached the end of the tunnel, I stepped into a realm of indescribable beauty. I've spent countless hours since that day trying to find the right words to describe it. But the truth is, no words could ever do it justice. It was as if every part of this place was alive with light. The ground beneath me seemed to glow softly, like it was lit from within. The sky wasn't blue or gray like we know it. It shimmered with hues of gold and silver, blending together like a living painting. A gentle breeze carried a melody that wasn't just heard but felt, a harmony that resonated deep within my soul. And then I saw him. In the distance stood a figure radiating a light so pure and powerful that I was immediately drawn to him. It was Jesus. I knew it instantly. It wasn't just the way he looked, it was the way his presence made me feel. His light wasn't just around him, it poured out from him, filling the entire space with love and peace. As he stepped closer, I could see him more clearly. His eyes were the first thing that struck me. They were deep, kind, and full of compassion, eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the universe and yet radiated an infinite love. His hair had golden tones that seemed to shimmer with the light around him, and his skin glowed with a warmth that was almost tangible. He wasn't just a figure to be seen, he was a presence to be felt. As Jesus came closer, I felt all my emotions rise to the surface: joy, relief, awe, and even regret. But before I could say anything, he opened his arms and embraced me. That embrace was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, emotional, and overwhelming in the best way possible. In that moment, I felt completely known. Every part of me, every strength, every weakness, every mistake was laid bare before him, and yet there wasn't a hint of judgment in his presence. All I felt was love, unconditional, overwhelming love. It was the kind of love that dissolves every fear, every doubt, and every insecurity. He didn't need to say anything for me to understand that I was home, but then he spoke, and his voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, a resonance that filled every corner of my being. He said, "Rachel, you are loved. You always have been, and you always will be." Hearing those words brought tears to my eyes. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear them, how much I had doubted my worth and my place in the world. I asked him a question that had been on my mind for years. Why did you pray to God if you are God? His response was profound. He explained that during his time on earth, his prayers were a way of aligning his human will with the divine will of the Father. He prayed not out of weakness, but as an example for humanity, showing us the importance of connection, trust, and surrender to God's plan. He said, "Prayer is not just a request, it is a relationship. It is the way you align your heart with God's, the way you become a part of His work in the world." Jesus then showed me a review of my life. It was as if every moment of my existence was being played out before me, but it wasn't like watching a movie. I was reliving each moment, feeling the emotions, the thoughts, and even the impact my actions had on others. I saw times when I had been kind and compassionate, like helping a struggling student after school. I felt the joy and gratitude those moments brought to others, And it was humbling to see how even small acts of kindness had ripple effects far beyond what I could have imagined. But I also saw times when I had fallen short. I saw moments of impatience, times when I had let my own stress and frustration hurt others. One moment stood out clearly. I had snapped at my daughter Mia during a particularly stressful week. At the time, I thought nothing of it, but in the review, I felt her sadness and confusion. Through it all, Jesus' love never wavered. He didn't condemn me or make me feel ashamed. Instead, He gently helped me understand the significance of every choice I made. Jesus then showed me something even more profound. He revealed how every person and every action is connected, like threads in a beautiful tapestry. He showed me how my choices, both good and bad, had affected others. Even the smallest acts of kindness, like smiling at a stranger or holding the door open for someone, sent ripples of light through the lives they touched. He said, "Rachel, your life is part of a greater story. Every action, every word, and every thought matters. Choose love, and you will shine brighter than you can imagine." After what felt like an eternity in Jesus' presence, He told me something I wasn't prepared to hear. "Rachel, it's not your time. You still have work to do." I didn't want to leave. The peace, the love, the sheer beauty of being there. I wanted to stay forever. I begged Him, "Please let me stay. I don't want to go back." Jesus looked at me with the kind of love that only He can give, a love that both reassured me and broke my heart. He said, "I will always be with you, Rachel. You are never alone. But your purpose on earth isn't finished. Go back and share what you have seen. Help others understand my love." With those words, I felt a gentle pull, like I was being drawn away from the light. The colors around me began to fade, and the beautiful realm I had been in started to dissolve. The transition back to my body was sudden and jarring. One moment I was surrounded by love and light. The next, I was back in the cold, harsh reality of the park. I woke up to the sound of voices, muffled at first, then clearer. "She's back," someone shouted. I opened my eyes to see the faces of the paramedics leaning over me, their expressions a mixture of relief and disbelief. The pain returned immediately. My chest ached, my head throbbed, and my entire body felt heavy. But even through the pain, I felt an unshakable sense of peace. I knew I had been sent back for a reason. The weeks that followed were challenging. I had suffered a major heart attack, and my body needed time to heal. But what struck me most was how different everything felt. The world seemed brighter, more alive. I noticed things I had taken for granted before, the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the laughter of my daughter, the kindness of strangers. Every moment felt like a gift. More importantly, my priorities shifted. The things I used to stress about, work deadlines, small inconveniences, no longer seemed important. Instead, I found myself focusing on what truly mattered: my relationships, my faith, and the impact I could make in the lives of others. At first, I wasn't sure how to share my experience. I worried that people might think I was imagining things or exaggerating. But then I remembered Jesus' words, "Go back and share what you have seen." I started by telling my closest friends and family. Their reactions were overwhelmingly positive. Many of them said my story helped them reconnect with their faith or see their own lives in a new light. Encouraged by their support, I began speaking at local churches and community events. I shared my story, not to draw attention to myself, but to help others understand the depth of God's love and the incredible power of prayer. If there's one thing I learned from my near-death experience, it's this: every moment of our lives matters. Every choice we make, every act of kindness, and every prayer we offer has a purpose. Jesus showed me that our lives are like threads in a vast, beautiful tapestry. Even when we can't see the bigger picture, every thread contributes to the masterpiece God is creating. And most importantly, I learned that we are never alone. No matter how far we feel from God, He is always there, waiting for us with open arms. His love is unconditional, His grace is infinite, and His presence is with us always. I hope my story has touched your heart and reminded you of the incredible love and grace that God has for each of us. If you're struggling or searching for answers, I encourage you to reach out to Him. Pray, even if it feels awkward or unfamiliar. Talk to Him like you would a trusted friend. And if this story has inspired you, please share it with someone who might need encouragement. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts or answer any questions you have. Thank you for listening to my testimony. Remember, you are loved, you are seen, and your life has eternal significance. May God bless you and guide you always.